In this lesson, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what spreadsheets are. We're going to be using Google Sheets for this because everyone has access to that. Although if you'd rather use something like Microsoft Excel, it's extremely similar. Just a few of the functions might be slightly different in the way that they're typed, and the look may be slightly different as far as like where to find certain buttons. But other than that, they're pretty common. Okay, first thing I want to do is talk about what a spreadsheet is and what a spreadsheet isn't. A lot of people who haven't used spreadsheets before, when they first open it up, they look at this and they're like, okay, so this is basically just like a table in a Word document or a Google Doc. And tables in Google Docs and Word documents um, serve a purpose, but they can't really do much besides enter information into them. They can't work with information. They can't calculate things based on that information. They just enter it. So a spreadsheet actually lets us do all kinds of calculations in a way that calculators often can't. It's far more complex than a calculator, and it lets us keep track of information and analyze data very nicely and easily. So the first thing I'm going to mention is just some terminology. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about cell references. Cells are these individual boxes that you see within a spreadsheet, highly important on where you put things. And you'll notice that in the top left corner here, for instance, it says that this is cell B4, and that's because it is in column B, row 4. Similarly, up here, I would have A2 and so on. And we're going to be using those cell references kind of like variables to use in our equations and our functions. So we can enter different types of information into our cells, the most obvious of which is just text. So I can type something like text goes here, and I'll even try to spell it properly, or at least use proper grammar punctuation. And I'll just keep typing here. It will overlap with the next cell. And so you'll notice that, yeah, you see that entire phrase. Now, it looks like it's in cell B2, but if I check up here, cell B2 is actually quite empty. This is just B1 overflowing into B2. And if I go into B2 and I type something, you'll notice that it actually does cut off A1, so it doesn't overlap once there's something there that it actually has to show. Now, if you do want to show the entire text in cell A, you can always just go to the little part between here and you can manually change the size, or you can just double click on it and it will automatically change size so that it fits everything and you can see all that you need to see. Okay, so mostly what we're going to use text for is putting in descriptions and just so that we can read in a spreadsheet and see what is actually being measured or anything. But I'm going to put down students in class just as my thing. And I'm going to put down here, we got girls and boys in our class. And I'm going to make up some number here. I'll say that our class has 14 girls and 11 boys. So you can see that I can enter numbers in here. Numbers are helpful since we're going to be using a lot of data analysis. We're going to be looking at actually using this to do calculations for us. And then we can use those references to do a whole bunch of things. So for instance, if I wanted to know the total number of students in my class, I have a couple of options here. And this is where students use spreadsheets wrong. The total number of students in the class, they look at it and say, well, there's 14 plus 11, that's 25, and they type 25 in that box. Now, while that is correct, let's say that one of the girls drops the course and it goes down to 13. Well, all of a sudden, our total is now incorrect. Also, we actually had to manually do the work. So I'm going to go back to 14 girls in the class, and instead of just typing 25 in there, I'm going to type in equals, and then I look up and I see where the cells are that I want to add together. So I want to add what's in B3 and B4. So I have a couple of options there. I can type B3 plus B4, which are the two cell references. And you'll notice it actually gives me a little preview here of what the answer will be, which is 25. And I'll hit enter. So now what happens is when I change this and say, oh, one of the girls dropped the class. Now my class is down to 24. And oh, 3 new boys joined the class. It's now up to 14 boys. There are now 27 students in the class. So this is just giving me my new sum of those two numbers that way. Now I want to show you that there's another way I can do this, and this is actually more useful if you have a bunch of numbers you want to add up together. Instead of doing, the first number plus the second number, just do equals sum. And now this one's automatically selected it because there's only two numbers in the sheet, and it does some auto assumptions for you. But if you don't want it to do the default assumption, just highlight the cells that you'd like to use. And you'll notice that it's not B3 plus B4 here, it's B3 colon B4. And what that's saying is everything from B3 to B4. Now, if there were 25 or 30 data points, it might say B3 colon B28, in which case it would add up all the numbers from cells B3 to B28. And you'll notice that it does highlight them in the same color that it is. So for instance, it's colored kind of an orange here, and it highlights those in orange. Then for my function, I'm just going to close that bracket and enter it. And yep, it does that. And same thing, if I change this 11 and 14, yep, this changes to 25. So again, with something as simple as two numbers, maybe this is a little bit overkill, but with something where there's maybe 20 or 50 or 1,000 numbers, this is a very, very nice feature to work with. Now, I should point out that there are other things that you can put in here numerically. Like these are just straight up numbers, but I could put in a whole bunch of things such as money or time. So let's say that we have a fundraiser, and the girls, they're better at selling stuff. They know what they're doing. They're gonna make $20 each. Actually, you know what? I typed 20 in there. In here, I'm going to say the boys make 15 each, and you'll notice that it doesn't actually put a dollar sign in front. But I should be able to just go to Format, Number, and then choose what kind of number I want it to be. So I can choose things like currency. So I'll put that in there. And actually, you know what? I put the dollar sign in here, but it's still formatting it as just 20 instead of 20.00. So I'm going to format that as currency as well. And you'll notice that there are a whole bunch of different types of ways that you can format numbers. We have dates and times, we have money stuff, we have percentages, scientific notation, etc. And you can put in plain text or registered as plain text if say for instance you're doing something, I don't know, where a number is actually the name of something. So you're going to a restaurant named 22. Then you don't want that to register as a number. You want it to register as a name, and you can change that to plain text. But we want these to be in currencies, so we'll do currencies. And then I might say something like, I want to know how much money the class brought in total if every girl in the class raised $20 and every boy in the class raised $15. So again, I can do some subtotals here. In this box, I'm going to say that this equals that number times that number. So the girls brought in a total of $220. And it started to do it automatically. And you'll notice there's a lot of times it will start to do something automatically, and often that's actually what you want to do. But I'm going to try and show you how these things work manually, just so you know. Now, on this one here, you'll notice that this is B3 times C3. Well, I could copy and paste that here, but I don't want B3 times C3. I want B4 times C4. Well, if I cut and paste that, hey, look, it actually knows to change that value. It says I moved down one, so it actually moves the cell references down one. Now, what happens if you don't want that to happen? So let's say, for instance, I want both the boys and the girls find one person who will give them $50. I don't know. So we'll put that up there. And I want this to equal B3 times C3 plus 50. Specifically, I want to add in that cell reference just in case it changes. And now if I cut and paste that down here, you'll notice that it moves the cell reference from C2 to, from C1 to C2, which is blank. And I don't want that. I want it to keep referring to the 50. So what I can do there is just change my formula from C1 to $, C $1. And what that does is it locks in that reference and it says when you move that cell around, I can cut and paste it anywhere I want. And it's going to do the two cells before it multiplied together, which in this case are blank, plus whatever's in that cell. Now, if, for instance, you want to stay in the same column, but you will let the number change, you can lock C1 or lock just the C or just the 1 by just using $1. But if you want to just always use that reference cell, use both the $C and the $1. Okay, so now that I've done that, I can cut and paste it down here, and it should give me that times that plus the 50. I can also, instead of cutting and pasting, just drop and drag the bottom corner, which does the same thing. And you'll notice this says 14 times 15 plus the $50. And by the way, I realize this is a very fictitious, weird example. I'm just trying to show you how the functions work. And then if I wanted the total of how much both of them make together, I could again do the sum of those two numbers together. Okay, so we've done addition, we've done multiplication. You could basically use division, subtraction the exact same way, so I won't bother going over those as long as you understand that those are there. And those are kind of our basic functions, of which there are a lot more that we could possibly work with. Okay, let's make a new sheet. So we'll go down here and we'll just click the plus button to add a new sheet, just because I don't feel like erasing the old one. And then we'll set up something. So let's say that we are going on a shopping spree today. And there are 3 things that we're going to buy because apparently we're in an old era that still collects physical media. But we're going to buy, let's say, some CDs, some DVDs, and some Blu-rays. I always spell Blu-rays wrong. Is that the correct way to actually write Blu-rays? That is right now anyway. And here I might put down the number I'm going to buy and the price each. And I'm going to buy, let's say, 8 CDs, and CDs are each $10. Now I could format that as currency, but I think it'll actually acknowledge it as currency. If not, we can change it later. And I'm going to buy 3 DVDs at $12 each. Yeah, you know what? DVDs are cheap. Let's do $5 for DVDs. And Blu-rays are actually worth something these days. So let's buy 5 Blu-rays at $20 each. Okay, and if I want to know what this would cost, I could do a whole bunch of different things. I could write down that this equals, oh, look how it automatically assumed I wanted to multiply those two numbers, and it was correct. So I'm just going to hit enter. And I'm actually going to drag that down to the next two because I think that's good enough. Now what I want to do is do a subtotal. And this would be the amount before tax. So I'll just do the sum of these 3 things. And I want to do the total with tax right there. And I've got a couple ways I can do it. So for instance, I know tax is 13%. So I could type in equals that times 1.13. And that tells me that $195 with 13% tax is $220. Okay, well, what if I don't know off the top of my head what the tax rate is, or if I want to make sure that this will take into account if the tax rate changes. So over at the side here somewhere, I can put down tax, and I can write in 13%. Now, I believe it should acknowledge it as 13%, so what I'm going to do here is change this to D7 times 1 plus what's in this cell. And again, I'm going to add the little dollar signs there because I want it to refer to that cell regardless of where I move this thing to. Not that I plan on moving it, but there we go. And yep, it's acknowledging that is the same price as before. So now what happens is, compared to doing this with just a calculator or mentally, I can really quickly say, you know what, I found a lot of CDs I want, so I'm going to get 14 of those. And notice how everything updated. It updated there, it updated our subtotal, and it updated our tax. And let's say that we want, we only want 2 DVDs today. Oh, and the Blu-rays went on sale. They're no longer $20. They're now $18. And we see how all the numbers change for us. Now we can see what happens if, let's say that the sales tax in the province that we're, or maybe this isn't in a province. Maybe we're ordering these from, well, I guess Quebec is still a province, but maybe we're ordering them from another province that has a different tax rate. So instead of paying 13%, I have to change it to 15%. And when I do that, you'll notice that that number changed just a little wee bit because it took into account that. And if there's a note, don't pay the tax event, I can put 0 there, and you'll notice that, yep, that seemed to work. The price with tax is the same as the price without tax. Okay, I'm just going to show you a few more features that we can use, and not all of them are super important for this particular example, but I just want to show you how things work. Maybe for the CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays, we want to know which one had the largest number. And obviously with 3 numbers, we can quickly see that 14 was the highest. But I could do something like say, what is the max and min number of things in a column? So the max, I just type in, and the beautiful thing of this is if you don't know the formula for something, just take a guess. I'm guessing it's max something. Oh, it brings up a list. I'm going to do max. And it tells me what to do. It tells me to enter in all the values that I want to look at for maximum. So I'm going to actually look at these values, and then I'm going to close the bracket. And certainly it said that there are 14 is the maximum, so that's the maximum in that column. Now you'll notice that if I auto-complete this, or if I drag this down, why did the maximum, well, I realize that this is going to be where we're putting the minimum, but if I did the maximum here, this should also be the maximum. The difference though is that the maximum up here was for these 3 cells, and then when I cut and pasted it down one, it assumed I wanted these 3 cells, and in those 3 cells, the maximum is 5. Okay, either way, we're doing the minimum here, but same idea, equals min, and you'll notice that it comes up pretty quickly. By the way, if you're not sure what, like there's usually special versions of stuff, so min A, so that's the minimum numerical value of a data set. This is the, minimum value of a numeric data set. I'll be honest, I'm not sure exactly what min A does, unless maybe you've got words in there. But if you're not sure what the others are, just go with the default one. And if it doesn't work the way you want it, then try the others. So same thing, we're going to do the minimum of those 3, and we should get a 2 out, and we do. And just to do one more, let's say that we wanted the average number, or actually, you know what, this time let's do the average price of CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays. So we can see that CDs are 10, DVDs are 5, and Blu-rays are 18. But we're going to do the average price of those media types. And so average, I could type in mean, but I'm going to just type in average and see what happens. That looks like the one I want, so I'm going to use average. It asks me to enter in which cells I want. I'm going to enter in those ones. I'm going to close that. And it says the average price of those 3 things is $11. Now, if I did this and added these up manually, this would be 15 plus 18 is 33 divided by 3. Yep, that's 11. That is correct. You'll also notice that because these over here were given in dollars, and this is the average of them, it's giving the average in dollars. Kind of auto formats that way. But again, you can always change the formatting using format if you'd like to change the cells to be something else. Now, again, one more time, if you change anything over in the spreadsheet here, so for instance, if I change CDs down to 1, you'll notice that the maximum is no longer 14, it's now 5, and the minimum is now 1. That makes sense. And if those Blu-rays all of a sudden shot up in price to $25, then it looks like we're shooting up to 13. Now, if you look carefully, if I actually add up these 3 things, that's $40. 40 divided by 3 is actually $13.33. So this is just rounding off. And if you don't want it to round off, again, we can do stuff like format, number, currency, and you'll notice that it gives it to 2 decimal places, which is what you'd normally want. Now you can use a whole, or look around and you can find features all over the place. Up here, I could have automatically clicked this button to format as a currency. If I didn't want to include those decimal places, I can just remove decimals there, or I can add them back in. If I wanted to keep this to 5 decimal places, which I don't know why I would, this is money, but either way, you can change the decimal places of what you want to do. So there's a whole bunch of formatting options. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I think that pretty much gives you the basics of what you can do with a spreadsheet, or at least what you can use a spreadsheet for. And then in the next lessons, we'll look at a lot more different types of functions and ways that we can use spreadsheets to do all kinds of funky things.